This is your favorite show, Final Voice Show. Today we ask a simple question. Is Africa ready to manage its own affairs? Is the black man really ready to manage his own affairs? What would Kwame Nkrumah say today if he was to be alive? What would Ahmed Sekou Toure, Julius Nyerere, Lumumba, Kenneth Kaunda, Samora Machel, Sam Nujoma, Robert Mugabe, Fumilayo Kuti, Nelson Mandela, Tafawa Balewa, what would these people, these great men, have said if they were to be alive today? This is Final Voice. We believe Mother Africa must wake up. That is the only way to go. I simply ask again, is the black man capable of managing his own affairs as Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said some 60 years ago? Don't you think we need a white man? Don't you think we have to hire the whites to come manage Africa for us? Do you still believe in the black man? Do you still believe in your own continent, Africa, that Africa can really do it? Why can't we swallow our pride as a people of a continent and lace up with the white man to help manage Mother Africa? Can we do it? Yes, we can, is what people say. But how do we do it has been the question. This is Final Voice, your favorite channel, your favorite show. Welcome to the show, Mr. Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you, Charles.
Yeah, not channel, but Mr. Mitchell, your favorite guest on my show. So, Africa must wake up. Africa can manage its own affairs. I'm going for a break. When I come back, Mr. Mitchell tells us more. Welcome back. Viewers, Mr. Mitchell is right here. So, Mr. Mitchell, how do we do it? The black man is capable of managing his own affairs. It's what one great hero, one great leader said in the 60s or in the 50s. But how do we do it has always been the question. How do we achieve this dream of the black man is capable of managing his own affairs? It means Africa is capable of managing its own affairs. How do we do this?
Right. The statement actually by Kwame Nkrumah actually reminds me of another history lesson also, where Italy decided to do her own stuff by herself. So the statement that was used in Italian was Italia farà da sé. Italy will do or will manage her own affairs.
Italia farà da sé.
Farà da sé, yes. In this case, then we say Africa farà da sé.
Africa farà da sé.
Yeah. So can Africa then manage its own affairs? So to start off with, the assistance that we actually get from European countries, for instance, we actually get a lot of aid that is coming into Africa, and it's estimated to be around 54 billion or 50 billion thereabout per year, the amount of aid that comes to Africa. And looking over the years that this aid has been coming to Africa, if we were to put it, it runs maybe into trillions. But over the years, like since independence. So we now look at, has this aid really changed the face of Africa? Because that is the assistance that we are talking about, that we get. So we actually noticed that the aid has actually perpetuated poverty in Africa instead of stemming poverty. Because look at trillions. If trillions had really been put in some place elsewhere, we would have seen the results. So the problem with the support, sometimes it has created a dependency syndrome, and in that light, we might say that this assistance is actually killed instead of assisting, because at the end, people are now reliant. The moment an NGO comes, everyone is like, we work with this NGO. The moment the NGO goes, everything just stops with the NGO.
So the issue has been about dependency.
Yes. So that is the major problem when it comes to the assistance. So in this aspect, we are saying we have our own children or people who are skilled in various ways. These people, mind you, I said 50 billion is coming in aid. We also have our diasporans who are resident in various countries in Europe, etc., who are also sending remittances to Africa, which is almost the same amount, around 50 billion also, that is being poured into Africa annually by diasporans. But what is actually happened is that our governments have failed to find a way to harness this resource that we have outside Africa. Because look, we are saying this is 50 billion that is coming to Africa annually by remittances. And so if we have this amount, if the government could then find a way of managing to channel this resource towards developing Africa, then I'm sure we would actually manage our own affairs in that sense, and not wait for foreign aid to come our way.
So it's about how we manage our resources within and outside Africa. Is that what you mean?
That would be a different topic. Now I'm just talking about remittances, the money that people send every year.
The foreign direct investment and remittances coming to Africa, to the various countries, should be managed well to reduce over-reliance.
Let me come again, Charles. What I'm saying is, we have a nurse in the UK. She is working and sending money back home. And this money she's sending probably to her mother so that she can
the remittances,
do whatever she's doing, right? But over and above this nurse could actually even maybe send a little bit more, which is targeted towards some development, if there was this kind of arrangement. But because the government hasn't managed to harness this resource or this money from these diasporans, so it's a resource that we are not using.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I get it. I get it. So, what else do we touch, Mr. Mitchell?
Then we now look at the point that you are now making of managing the resources themselves, right? So we did talk about in another episode. We talked about the resources that we have in Africa. We are endowed with a lot of minerals, etc., etc. Now, what we need to do is we actually need to account for all the minerals that we have in Africa. We might talk of countries like Nigeria with the largest or vast amounts of oil that they produce per year. But when we now come to the ground, right, what has the oil done in Nigeria? What have the diamonds done in whatever country that we are producing diamonds in, Liberia, etc.? What do we actually see, that diamonds have been reduced from this, removed from this place. So you might find that there is actually a lot of poverty where a lot of wealth has been taken. I'll give you an example. In my country, we have granite rock, right? And granite rock is used to make a lot of buildings here in Europe, right? And where this granite actually came from, you go back to the place, then you are looking at a scarred landscape, you are looking at impoverished people, right? But you look at the building that comes from this polished granite, is very magnificent. So we actually need then to account for our minerals, right? And that they actually work for us. So in that sense, if we can manage to do this, we do not need all this foreign aid that we are talking about. In that case, then we can say, Africa Farada said, we are managing our own resources.
Yeah.
As long as we can't do that, we continue to receive aid as it were. And so in that regard, we actually need to account for our minerals. However, that is not to say in a global world like we have now, that we can actually like just work alone. We talk about technology, for instance, right? And technologies have patents. And once a patent is actually put, you are not allowed to go and make the same thing without talking to the patent owner. So in that regards, then we now need to talk to those people who have got patents.
I mean, for the patent right.
Yes, because this is like what happened during the COVID vaccines that we had, that, you know, the patents, if the patents had been released, people could have actually made vaccines in India, in Africa, on a larger scale, and everyone managed to get these vaccines. But then the patents were long. So we now need that technical cooperation, where we now have you know, this assistance that we can get from, you know, various people who have this technology.
So in this regard, I mean, it means the black man cannot manage his affairs without depending on the big guys or some other people.
Yeah, it's like when we talk about technology, it comes in many aspects.
But Nkrumah meant we can do everything if we are ready and serious to do whatever we want to do.
Yes, I'm looking at it from another, you know, like I've given this example that we okay, let me give another example so that it then really tallies with what I want to say. Okay, we have a concept of running municipalities, for instance. And our cities in Africa, I look at Harare, for example, the capital city of Zimbabwe, was established around 1891, right? So it's only like 100 and something years. It's a very young city, right? And you now compare with a city like Munich, with a city, you know, in these cities in Germany, which are like more than 1,000 years, you know, in running. So they have all the systems of administration, the layouts of how the city has grown, you know, the water provision for the running population, the estimations, etc. They have these over thousands of years. Compared to us, whilst I'm talking about 1891 for Harare, but the independence only came in 1980. And so from 1980 to 2022, we are now saying this is the time that we have had experience running cities, you see. So we have like a limited amount of time in this aspect of how to really manage cities, whereas others actually have thousands of years of experience, which is actually archived. So in that respect, this is why I'm saying we also need this kind of assistance in that aspect.
Yeah. So, what would Kwame Nkrumah, Ahmed Sekou Toure, Jomo Kenyatta, Patrice Lumumba, Kenneth Kaunda, Samora Machel, Sam Nujoma, Fumilayo Kuti, Abubakar Balewa, Nelson Mandela, Robert Mugabe say if they were to be alive today? Is the black man capable of managing his own affairs? I'm going for a break. When I return, Mr. Mitchell tells us more about what we need to do as a people of a continent. What can we do? Do you agree with us or disagree with us? Just leave a comment in the comment section, like this video and subscribe for more videos. I'll be right back. So we are still on the topic, is the black man capable of managing his own affairs? What else do we talk about after talking about how we manage our resources, how we manage remittances, how we manage foreign direct investment that comes into our country or the various economies in Africa? What else do we talk about?
Okay, Charles, for instance, we need to relook at our education system. And this education system should then actually try to solve the problems that we face within Africa. Because as currently the situation is, we have 400,000 students. We are leaving Africa to study in Europe.
400,000 students leave Africa,
yes,
to study abroad.
And particularly in Europe.
In Europe.
Yes. So this huge chunk of students going to study abroad, they actually learn European systems or the systems that they have abroad, right? And some of these systems might not actually solve the problems that we have in Africa. And later on, these same people will come and they actually need then to reorient their education with the situation that we have in Africa. Whereas, if we have our current education system, look at our solution, our problems, we come up with our own solutions for our problems.
So one is about education.
Yes. So that's the first thing. And then we also need to look at the attitudes of the people, right? Where we talk about issues to do with corruption, mismanagement, etc. So once we deal with this,
like punctuality,
yes,
time consciousness,
exactly. So once we deal with these issues like of corruption, etc., etc., definitely we can be able to be in a position to manage our own affairs without the interference of other people.
What about energy?
With regards to energy, we have a lot of solar energy, for instance.
I mean, the sun is always there.
Is always there. What we need to do is we come back to this education system, because currently no place in Africa are we making the solar panels. We actually import the solar panels, so we are proud of the sun, but we cannot harness the sun. Yes, so we actually need to be making our own products. This is the first thing, make our own products. So we cut out on the imports and have a lot of manufacturing. So in a way, like sort of import substitution, what can we do to reduce the current dependencies that we have, if we need buses, we have to import. If we need food, we have to import. All these things, we actually need to do them at local level. We have our coach builders, people who are trained with coach building. We have engineers. We have, the various skills that we have. We need kind of have them in place. And most importantly, what I was thinking was that we actually need to have, for instance, when we look at I was talking about education. We have 400,000 students going abroad, etc. What we need to do is we need to have our universities in Africa look at different areas. For instance, a university in West Africa.
We need some orientation, new courses, new programs to really put the skills in these graduates.
Yeah, we need the skills, yes, but even the focus itself. For instance, we have, let's say, it could be in West Africa where we have like a lot of diseases, for instance. And then we would say, this region focuses on health. So we have universities around West Africa that look into the health.
In health?
Yes.
Others look into climate change. Let's say engineering.
Exactly.
Technology.
Yeah. We have this
environment
in various places, yeah? So it can go regionally. For instance, we have, for instance, tourism. And which areas are really thriving tourism? Probably it's East Africa or wherever. So that region then looks into this aspect of, let's say, tourism. So we have universities that just focus, on this aspect of let's say, hospitality or the hospitality industry. And then our students from the various countries go there, they learn, come back, things like that. Mm-hmm. So
even with energy, people believe that we can dam River Nile, mm-hmm. Great River Nile, mm-hmm. and this can provide energy for Africa, for manufacturing, for production. Mm-hmm. So what about, have we touched infrastructure? Can we touch infrastructure or?
Right, the infrastructure that we currently have in Africa, for instance, if we look at the roads had actually been designed in such a way that they lead to the ports.
The roads, all the major roads.
They lead to ports, yes. So, because then the raw materials had to go out of the country and to other countries. But now, we actually need to look at intra-roads. The system also has to link between the various countries.
Like, say, if one region, let's say Ghana, mm-hmm. if the people of Volta region can manufacture sugar cane that is needed for sugar, producing sugar, roads in Volta region linking, say, Accra, where we have the factory, should be good.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So that the raw materials can be transported from Volta region to Accra without any challenge.
Mm-hmm. So, with regards to infrastructure, this is what we are saying. Our infrastructure should actually look inward. And we actually encourage a lot of intra-Africa trade, as what is happening now with the AFCTA.
Don't you think we need major roads and railways, the rail network, to connect the Francophone and the Anglophone countries? It's like the Francophones do not meet these countries that speak English, the Anglophone countries. Mm-hmm. to me, I think we need a real network to connect these countries. The north to the south, east to the west. Should be connected with the major rail network. Because after, this free continental trade agreement is being signed in Rwanda, but to connect these countries to go into business, into commerce, will require major infrastructure. A huge infrastructure investment is needed. If not, after will be nothing, or will not achieve anything for us as a people of the continent. So we've touched on infrastructure, we've touched on energy. We need good airports, so we can have people coming in to do businesses from Nigeria to Ghana to South Africa to Zimbabwe to Algeria, and these things require infrastructure. That is what Africa lacks, or is almost lacking. So aside education and attitude, aside energy and infrastructure, what about food security and agribusiness or agriculture?
Right, that's another area which we also need to take care of, so that we feed ourselves, right? We actually, sometimes we can actually say in just one part of Africa, that's where the deficit is. Yet there is a surplus in another part. But the logistics is not quite in place, that we actually have, let's say, rice made in Nigeria, move from Nigeria to Somalia, from Somalia, or, this kind of logistics is not quite in place. And this is something also that we actually need to work around, so that we are talking about, online trading. Is it easy for someone to trade with someone in Mozambique, trading with someone in Malawi, trading with someone in Central African Republic? We have this other issue of our monetary system is not quite uniform, as you would find, for instance, in the EU. So they just use the euro, and the transaction is not so difficult. But in some cases, we actually then have this challenge that you have to change this money into this other money, and makes it difficult for trade.
Yeah, so it also comes to logistics and infrastructure. And that is what is helping Germany now. Their model of logistics, or how they manage logistics, is what is giving the economy money. And creating employment, some kind of jobs for the people of Germany. What about the issues of security?
Yes.
There are bandits everywhere. People, attacking people in the shopping malls. It's about security if you want to grow as a people. So the conflict and political instability in Africa, how do we check this to grow?
Actually, this is another part where some of the instability is actually not caused by Africa. So some of the instability is caused by some external influence. So for instance, there's a region around West Africa where we find there are a number of coups that happen, and the involvement of the French, for instance, there's a hand somehow. We will find that all the French-speaking countries, not all, sorry, but most of the coups actually happen in French-speaking countries.
In the Francophone
Francophone countries. So maybe it's because the word coup is French, I'm not sure, but but we find
because
that
the word or the phrase coup d'etat is a Francophone word. Probably that is why it's inciting them to always cause coup d'etat in their countries.
Yes.
But it's just for fun and not that the case.
So, but we notice that this external influence is what is causing this instability at times.
Like in Guinea, like in Burkina Faso, in Mali. Yeah.
So we find that we do have these challenges. So I think the first thing is, maybe if we don't have this external influence, we could actually be probably in a position to manage our own stuff. And we also notice that some of the weapons that actually are used by these groups are actually coming from external countries as well, because we find that we don't have so many arms manufacturing companies in Africa. So that's the other issue.
So somebody elsewhere is still gaining from Africa by selling guns or ammunition in general to some people in Africa. Yeah, these bandits, these people who call themselves terrorists, or may have some request or proposal, can their government meet them and see how they can solve these issues of bandits so that we can end conflict in Mali, we can end conflict elsewhere in Nigeria, and what have you.
Yeah.
So we've touched on health and we've touched on education, we've touched on attitude of the people of Africa, we've touched on energy, that we can also move into renewable energy to produce more. We can tap into the sun or wind and many more. We've talked about infrastructure, that we need good roads, not the ones that lead to the ports alone, but the ones that connect African countries. We need good rail network to connect the north to the south, east to the west, so that after the continental agreement that we signed, I mean the free trade agreement that we signed, could be realistic or could help African countries develop. We've touched on food security. We need to make sure food is available and affordable. And issues of agribusiness, we're talking about how we can add value to our product, our cocoa, our bauxite, our granite from Zimbabwe. I mean, it's about the value chain and the supply chains. Something that we need to check as a people of the continent. I'm going for a break. When I come, Mr. Mitchell tells us more. So, the black man can manage his affairs if he looks into the issues of agriculture and agribusiness well, talks about infrastructure, energy. If the black man is able to manage these things, then the black man can manage his affairs. Africa can manage its affairs. Issues of education and attitude should be checked. If these things are done, then modern Africa, Mother Africa can manage her affairs. Raw materials, how we manage raw materials and add value to it is what Mr. Mitchell talked about. Still on the show, is the black man capable of managing his own affairs? What would Kwame Nkrumah, Ahmed Sekou Toure, Julius Nyerere, Jomo Kenyatta, Robert Mugabe, Sam Nujoma, Fumilayo Kuti, Abubakar Balewa say about Africa if they were to be alive today? Are we serious as a people of the continent? When do we end the conflict in Africa? How do we get major roads connecting countries in Africa, major rail network connecting countries in Africa? Our system of education, can we change it to suit industrialization in Africa? Job creation for the youth, energy and infrastructure should be touched if we are really serious of managing our affairs as a people. What do you add, Mr. Mitchell?
Right.
I mean, it's about the African narrative, the democracy. You sure this kind of democracy that we have will lead us into something good? We talk about coup d'etat. Aren't you sure the coup d'etat happening in the French countries, French-speaking countries, is being as a result of our democracy? It's like we are copying somebody, we are imitating somebody. What is our own narrative as a people?
So that is the big question for the century for Africa. We just coming from this independence era, and we then took up democracy for various countries. But the format of democracy that we are using in Africa, like you are also saying, maybe we really need to look into it, because we are saying every 5 years, for instance, there should be elections. And yeah, the government should take the power from the people so that they are given an extra mandate for them to continue. But we find now with the current situation that we have in Africa, every time we have elections, we have violence, the economy actually comes to a standstill all the time. So maybe it's now time that we really look into this. Is this the system that we want, that every 5 years we come to this? And some research actually done so that we then can come up with a consensus of the exact type of democracy probably that we really want in Africa, because we actually are lagging behind because of the current system that we have.
Others believe we need dictators and not people in suit, people who have copied the whites so much that we earn nothing from it in the end. Are you sure we need some kind of diplomatic militancy, like the person acts a bit like a military man but still democratic?
Well, this is what I'm saying, that we need to have a consensus, you know, that we as the people of Africa, or the people in the various countries in Africa, we really come to sit down and we decide what is the best democracy that could work for us. Do we want, because like what we currently have is, let's say we have someone who's really doing well in the 5 years that he was doing well, and for one reason or the other, people decide then in the next that, no, his 5 years is up, so let's have someone else. And then the person that comes maybe doesn't have the same progress that we were experiencing in the 5 years, you know. So maybe these things that we really need to really focus on, and probably we have the researchers, they help us, you know, so that we move forward and agree as a continent what exactly is best for us.
Yeah. So there should be some kind of consensus or referendum at the top level to decide what we need as a people of a country. What about AU? Your comment reminds me of AU, the African Union. It's the AU up to task?
Well, the AU has shown, in some cases, it has tried its best, but I think it can still do much better than it has currently done. We have had a number of conflicts within Africa where we were expecting the AU to do quite a lot, but in the end, their efforts have not, they didn't really bring out the results that we really expect. So in the end, we then find the United Nations has to send in their troops. We find the French have to send in their troops because the AU has not managed to do its own work. So in that regards, I think that this is the other part. If we are to do manage our own affairs, the AU...
If we know how to manage our affairs.
Yes, the AU really has to come to scratch, so that it can really stand when there is a conflict. It comes in, it makes a stamp, and things are sorted out.
Because as at now, people believe the AU is like a toothless dog or a white elephant, and it's like there's no action on paper or nothing on paper to attend to. Before we end the show, do you still believe, do you believe in common currency, common market, common passport? These are basic or topical now. Should Africa consider having common market, common currency, and common passport, for instance?
Right. I am strongly of that view, because, I mean, what we currently have now is not really helping anyone. For example, you look at the long stretches of traffic at the borders, right? You look at it in another way. Let's just say there are 50 trucks, and I'm assuming just one truck has a minimum of, say, $10,000 that it is carrying. So we have 50 trucks carrying $10,000 each, and they are just parked overnight into the next day, and all this money is just parked, you see. So what I actually think is this common market that we're talking about should also come with a consideration on these border systems that we currently have in place, which are actually affecting trade in a sense. And we talk about hospitality industry, for example. We are expecting that the tourists should only be mostly people from Japan, from elsewhere, that are coming into our countries. But I could also want to just visit Mozambique for just a day, 2 days. Maybe I have relatives there, but I'm told I need a visa with so much and so much, but just, $10 that I spend in Mozambique can actually employ someone, right? Because I get into Mozambique, I want to buy a drink.
You have to go to the restaurant.
Yes, I have to find accommodation, right? All these things is money. But if I'm barred because of passport, then I'm going to stay in my home and I'm not going to use that money. So in a way, we have not created the employment that we want to create. So we actually have to remove these barriers for hospitality industry, the barriers for even trade itself. So maybe I actually visit Mozambique, I see something that I like. I'm thinking maybe I need to invest in this area. And all these things come from traveling. But the moment we have these restrictions in traveling, then we actually reduce the trade that we want to have within Africa.
Yeah, I mean, to the surprise of viewers, I was in Germany for some time, and in a bus, a lady just approached me in the bus, and she showed me a flyer. I mean, they sell food, and on the flyer, to my surprise, was a food from Ghana, fufu and abenquine, fufu and palm nut soup. It's been sold elsewhere in Germany. This is how people create employment in their countries. This is how people earn money for their economies elsewhere. So AU should be up and doing. Let's focus on how we get the right infrastructure in Africa. Energy issues have to be looked at. Education and attitude, raw material dependency have to be looked at. How we add value to our natural resources, our exports, major export has to be looked at. Security, food security has to be checked or looked at. And security as in conflict and political instability. Conflict and political instability is killing Mother Africa. And if we claim that we are ready to manage our own affairs, we can't manage our affairs in conflicts or with political instability like coup d'etat and what have you. This is where we draw curtains on today's show. We still believe that the black man is capable of managing his own affairs, as Dr. Kwame Nkrumah said. But how do we do it has been the issue to be discussed. We will come your way sometime with similar discussion on this channel. What you can do is to subscribe, share this video, and leave a comment to let us know whether you like topics like this, and also to inform us as to what to discuss on this channel. Thank you for watching.